Well, thank you for joining us this evening. I do appreciate your time. Let's go ahead and just start off with introducing yourself and tell the audience who you are.
I'm Linda Nietes-Little. I started my business in 1972. It was a time when we had martial law in the Philippines, and I thought the best way is to experience history in the making. While I was working for a big international company, I just decided to resign and start a business that would benefit everybody, especially the young people in the country. At that time, there were two major booksellers in the Philippines that sold books of the same category that what I had in mind, which is Filipiniana books. And because I wanted to be a little different from them, what I did was to import. I traveled a lot then, and I have come across antiquarian bookstores in Europe and in the States, and I contacted them and in fact visited them a couple of months later to see if they still have the Philippine materials that I was looking for, and I bought them and brought them to the Philippines. So that made my bookshop a little different from the two other major bookstores that had the same Philippine materials as I had. And it made me very happy because I was able to bring research materials back to the country, which normally would be very difficult to get for Filipino researchers if they're scattered all over the world. So bringing them into the country, selling them to book collectors, maps, collectors of maps and prints, gave them a chance. The Philippine researchers had a chance to really look first-hand materials instead of just reading about them. So that was the rationale behind my bookshop. And of course, when your country is in crisis, the first thing you do is, I leave the country, I can find a job elsewhere. But I thought differently because then I had been out of the country for some time, and I wanted to come back and really experience history in the making, and that's martial law in the Philippines.
So really quick, Linda, for us, like I was born in 1973, and you speak about martial law, and you wanted to do something, like you said, you wanted to take a risk and build and start your own business. So for us that never experienced the martial law, who's never really even heard of it, this may be even the first time some of us, the audience is hearing about martial law in the Philippines. Can you just explain a little bit what was martial law, what was happening then, what was the environment, what was going on for the people of the Philippines during that martial law time?
Okay, it's kind of strange. Martial law made me go into the book business, but it also drove me out of the country, in the sense that when I had a bookshop, military officers would come and visit me. At first I thought, wow, they're book readers. They're here to look at my books. Later on I realized that was not their purpose. The purpose is to scrutinize the shelves if I have subversive materials, anti-Marcos materials. That definitely would be confiscated, and probably I'll be hauled into the ABC camps, military camps, A standing for Aguinaldo Camp, B for Bonifacio, and C for Camp Crami. And these were all the camps they used practically for people who are anti-Marcos. So that was a predicament that, media censorship was very tight. And I thought after a few years, this is not the way I'd like to live. I'd like to live in peace. I'd like to live without any fear. And getting out of the country was a relief in that sense.
So tell me a little bit about that, because again, you're in martial law, And like, what you just talked about your motivation, but really, what made you? What was the first step to really say, you know what?
Well,
I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna get out of here and venture off and get away from my homeland, which I love so much. But I'm gonna go to a foreign land and take my chances there. Like, how was that? What was that first step you took?
well, actually, civil rights were curtailed, and a lot of people who were speaking against the Marcos regime were hauled into different camps and questioned, and at the same time, really maltreated. Some of them died in camps, and I just didn't like that kind of environment. And there are lots more that you can really read in the books that we have on the shelf about martial law. And I just thought that's not the way it should be. I thought he would be a benevolent dictator, as he wanted to people to believe, but such was not the conditions that occurred. And definitely that is the thing that made me leave the country.
So what year did you actually make that move to leave the country?
Martial law was 1972. I stayed for 12 years. That's the second term, going on the third term of martial law for him. And I left the country 1984, and I came to the US. I worked for a multinational company then, so I had contacts. My training was in the US stock market. I worked in Hong Kong for this company. New York was just an American office for us, a domestic office. Our main office was in Geneva, in Europe, in Switzerland. So it was kind of easy for me to decide, okay, I'll get out of the country again and work somewhere else. But when I was in Manila, I was making a home for Philippine writings. And I told myself, why can't I duplicate the same situation, go to America and create a home for Philippine writings as well. And of course, at the time, I know that Philippine writings were not popular yet in the US, and we had very few even Filipino American writers who were doing their work here in the US. And so it was the right decision, I feel, and the rest comes in handy as part of my history.
So you left in 1984. You said you worked in the industry of of stocks. And when did you land here in San Pedro for this bookshop?
Okay, well, the first time I came to the U.S., I lived in Westwood, and I've stayed for several years in Westwood Towers, right by the corridor of Wilshire in L.A. And I got married. I met Robert, and we decided we'll build our home in Palos Verdes. So that was 1996, 26 years ago. And that's how I landed. And one time Robert and I were just looking around, Sunday afternoon taking a walk. We came across this beautiful building, and we thought, oh, this would be a lovely space for a bookshop. And when we inquired it was available months later, we just decided, yes, we'll open a bookshop right here. And the arcade building is a 1928 vintage building. And I thought the atmosphere is just right, and we have space for a small gallery. So we opened a small gallery as well, and we call it Pintados, to honor the unknown tattoo artists of the Philippines, who were the first people that the Spaniards came across or have met when they landed. They were all painted with beautiful tattoos in colorful, dyes, and it made me think, all right, we had our sense of aesthetics even before the Spaniards came, so we cannot say we inherit everything from the West. We had our own culture even before the foreigners came into our country.
That is amazing, and And again, that is directly across this beautiful bookstore that you guys have here in this arcade. This you said it's 125 years, the building itself. It's in a beautiful area. Again, we'll give some information on how the viewers can locate your bookstore and also to see the gallery. So really quick, Linda, just you talked a little bit about, you know, in the Philippines and making a space, an area for writers and Filipino literature. What is it about kind of like being not saying like the soul keeper, but being a keeper of our culture and our written text and, you know, some of our stories here? What is it why is that so important to you, and what is your goal here, or has been, for, you know, being here in San Pedro with this bookstore?
Okay, I've met in my travels a lot of Filipinos outside the country, and the children are growing up with nothing to talk about where they come from, first of all, and what is their culture all about. And I don't want that to be diminished in their personality. I don't want that to be lost, as part of, you know, growing up and not knowing who they really are. So I thought the best way would be to establish a home for Philippine writings where children could visit and talk and ask questions. And like yesterday, we had a book event in the bookshop, and one of our authors who came all the way from Manila had written a book called Pandesal Saves the Day. If you're Filipino, the word pandesal is very familiar, but what really is the story behind that? This and many other books on written by Filipino authors on Philippine folklore and similar topics that would be of interest to young children, to make them realize what the roots really are. And that's a prime motivation, because when children come into the bookshop and they discover books that they've never seen before, out of curiosity they would ask me, and I tell them in storytelling style what it means and what it is in our culture that we should hold on to make us stronger. Because we can be outside the country, we can leave the Philippines, but we remain Filipinos at heart. And of course, being born in America, some children would say, "We're an American." And I say, definitely, you are American of Filipino parentage or of Philippine heritage. So the other part of your personality, you should not forget, because that's part of your being.
And I totally agree, Linda. I'm being Filipino American myself, just, you know, trying to make that connection as well. And growing up, if I would have known of different spaces and places much like your bookstore, you know, I would have, you know, asked my parents or my older cousins or my brothers and sisters, hey, let's go to this bookstore to learn more about my culture, my heritage, and the stories that are, you know, are here within these pages. You're holding a book right now. You're holding a book.
This
if you can show us
yesterday, and definitely it's a good story for children to start with. This and many other things in the bookshop. We try to emphasize books for children written by Filipinos, because they can share the culture better, if I would say so, in the sense that it's in their DNA and they share it truly and with flourish. And the books that we carry are books that would help in character building of children, and not just because they're Filipinos, but because they're human beings and they have to relate to everybody. So we have books also relating to other cultures, but then the Filipino element is there. Like one of our authors, he's Filipino, he had written a book on coconuts, and the story goes something like this. in the grocery store, there are many beautiful fruits, colorful and all that. And in the middle of it is a coconut, brown and not so pretty, not so attractive. But as the story goes and evolves, the other fruits realize, yes, we may be of different colors, but we're all the same. You eat them, you share it, and you enjoy it. So this is how people should live. We live in different worlds, we live in different colors, among people of different colors, but we're all the same at heart, and we should live together in peace. So, that's a kind of sentiments that we should teach our children, especially nowadays with so many problems that beset us.
And I agree, Linda, and thank you for sharing that. And like you said, you have different books for the children's here. Going back to this one, Pandesal Saves the Day by Norma Olizon Chiamco. Sorry about that. And the illustrator is Mark Salvata. So
yes.
Just really quick. So Pandesal Saves the Day. What's the synopsis on this book for the kids?
Well, it's about a group of children. They were on a field trip, and the bus broke down, and the kids were not very sure what to do. They have eaten everything they had, and they'd eaten all sorts of foreign sounding breads and assortment of food. And there's a little girl who's Filipino, and who's the only thing she has in her lunchbox is pandesal. And she had a lot, she shared it with everybody, and everybody said, oh, we love this pandesal. So it saved the day for them. And from now on, she kept telling them about many other things about culture, and they got bored, and she said, can we play something Filipino? So she introduced sipa. Sipa is a game where you kick a certain, I think this is one of the things she brought, where you can kick it, and the children just enjoy it with all the energy that they can manage. At my age, I can no longer kick it, but sometimes they play it on this, So this is sipa, one of the components.
Nice. And tell me, aside from the children's book, can you tell us what other topics or what other types of books you house here?
We have different categories. We have books on literature. We have books on the Filipino-American experience. We have books on history, and we're very strong on the Japanese occupation of the Philippines. We have books on martial law. Of course, we have a popular section for culinary arts, and that's always a well-visited section of our on the shelf. We have books on art and many other categories. So this is more or less a complete full-service bookshop.
And how long again have you been open?
We opened here in 2016, and the gallery was opened a year later. And we wanted to pay tribute to our native weavers that use, native fibers for the clothing and the different textiles that they do. So we have an exhibit of Philippine textiles, hand-woven textiles by the different tribal communities in the Philippines. And very interesting because around this area, we have a lot of people interested in textiles and weaving. So that's one of the first things they do. What kind of material is this? How do they come about doing this? And it seems like our natives have very computerized minds. The technique they use is different from some other weavers that the other weavers would use. So it's interesting to other people. Yes.
And that's great. I'm happy to have found this place and been able to communicate and get in touch with you and actually be here and talking with you. as far as what's going to be happening with the bookstore, would you like to tell some information about that?
Well, I'm due to retire by the end of the year. I'm 85 years old. I have given 50 years of my life to this business, and it has been very fulfilling, although most of the time it had not been a very smooth, smooth journey, in the sense that I'm the first bookshop in American soil. I had nobody to talk to about the trade, although there are friends who are booksellers as well, but the kind of material they sell are different from mine, so it's not really that easy to communicate when you have problems. But some people were saying, when you retire, we lose a piece of a center where we could refresh ourselves on things Philippine, and they're hoping that I won't close my bookshop, although chances are I might close the gallery, and it possibly will be turned into a non-profit organization to be run by a group of people with a board and all that to make it simple for me, and I could just retire in my old age. So it's a legacy to the community. Yes.
Right. So you just mentioned you're going to retire. Is this bookstore retiring with you? It will not be filled with the books that we have here.
There are no final plans really, except for the fact that it may not exactly retire with me, because if the non-profit group comes up and manages it for me, then it will still be here. But we are still on the talking stage, so nothing is final about it.
What can help save the bookstore and the gallery? Do we need to get in touch with like some prominent Filipinos in the Philippines, like Mr. Manny Pacquiao or anybody from out there?
I don't know him
well,
at all.
You know what?
We
should make a call.
Name that's popular to other people.
Yeah.
If somebody could do that and contact someone, why not?
Why
yes.
not? Right.
Yes,
right.
definitely.
Well,
but I want it to be a legacy to the Filipinos in America, and I hope it can be saved that way, one way or the other.
Right. So, well, thank you for that, Linda. Is before we just shut this down and end, do you have any other messages you would like to tell
the
our
importance
viewers?
that parents play in the lives of their children. When I talk to parents, I always tell them, when you come to the bookshop, bring your children, especially if they're young. And many of them have been bringing children to the bookshop, and at the door I have a big stand-up poster of Dr. Jose Rizal, our national hero, and I always introduce to the children, this is your Lolo Jose. And they're curious. I have a Lolo at home who is another Lolo here in the bookshop. And I tell them the story of Jose Rizal and, how significant a role he played in getting the people united together and become a republic as it is right now. So it had gone through different transformations. The Philippine people had suffered a lot before we got our independence, and it's another subject I'm very close to. I'm very proud to say my father was a member of Congress in 1946 when we had our so-called independence from America. So he represented the province of Antique in Panay Island, which is in the central area of the Philippines. So parents, going back to parents, if you have a chance, bring your kids. And books are always a good example for you to have at home. So if they see you reading, your kids will definitely also love to read. And they normally in the Philippines we read because we need it for school. But I think we have to learn to read for pleasure, and books become your companion in your old age. So I have hundreds of books here that are my friends, and wherever I go, I have a book to read, and I don't feel lonely because I have one good company in my hands.
And
Yes.
really quick, Linda, one last question before I'll let you go. What would be your message to a young Linda who wants or has that same passion as you did 50 years ago? But what would you tell that young person, from just going back from your experience in
Well,
China?
first of all, if you love books or any other, what's your passion? Hold on to it and follow your passion. So if you're a young girl and you enjoy reading, continue reading to your old age. And if you plan to have a bookshop like I have right now, think of it as a service to the community. That's basically what I had in mind when I say I would like to have a home for Philippine writings so it can serve the community in the US. And it has served its purpose. We have clients all over the US, from Canada, from Europe. Every, what we would call OFWs that are looking for books for their children know where to contact me. And in the diaspora, children are growing old without any knowledge of the country. So this is where we are, and we're here ready to help whoever is looking for the roots. The bookshop is dedicated to Filipinos, originally just in America, but now we say dedicated to Filipinos in the diaspora. Wherever you are, we're here, so contact us. If you're looking for Philippine materials and you're looking for tracing, or you want to trace your roots, because this is a bookshop dedicated to you.
Thank you, Linda. And that's a wrap. Thank you so much. I'm just stopping the recording.
I think I talked too much.
No, it's fine. No, it's